So the first session is entitled "Is Television Fit for Purpose?" Now, I used to work at a TV company for ITV for 8 years, and I have to say that is a pretty loaded session title, Justin. Is television fit for purpose? What purpose? And also, it's bloody great, isn't it? But to be fair, things have been changing very rapidly in the last few years, and there are a lot of ways in which television hasn't necessarily evolved fast enough. And we're going to be looking into that this morning with 3 keynote sessions, followed by a panel. First up, we've got Alan, who's going to be looking at the impact of pick and pay on the marketplace. Then we've got Neil from Group M, who's going to be talking about media buyers and what they want from the television industry. And then third up, we've got Paul from Cablevision, who's going to be talking about how you can use data analytics and technology to re-establish reach amongst lost audiences. And then finally, like I said, we have a panel with an illustrious group of both agencies and broadcasters. I'm going to do my best to get them fighting in front of you. For those of you who were at the Pathfinders event yesterday, we did that pretty well. It almost kicked off. We had to get the security in to hold a few people back. So hopefully we'll be able to do that again today. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over the stage to Alan from the Diffusion group.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you all very much for coming out. It's really early. I'm going to keep this to 15 minutes, so I may breeze through some of this, but we'll stay on schedule. So we're going to be talking about unbundling pay TV, the new Canadian law. We did a little research around it, and then also what the effect might be on advertising. So let's see if this button works, and it does. So why did this all start? Because people kept asking, why am I paying for all these channels that I don't watch? And it seemed like a fairly reasonable question because people were having these bundles of hundreds of channels and probably not watching any of them. Their cable bills were going up, and there was some unhappiness. So taking a look just from a purely logical standpoint, what are the pros and cons of unbundling? So most people watch somewhere between 10 and 15 channels, and that's it. They tend to have their favorites, and they don't ever look at the rest of them. A lot of people are paying for sports who don't watch sports. That's become a big thing in the U.S. with ESPN. They're losing a lot of subscribers. It's an inexpensive part of the bundle, and a lot of people say, well, gosh, I'm not into sports. Why am I paying for this? Second corollary to that is people are paying for sports, but they may only watch one particular sport. They may be hockey fans or soccer fans, and that's all they watch. And again, why am I paying so much money for all these sports channels? And then also people want more options. In other words, they want Netflix, they want other streaming services. They don't necessarily want more channels. So those are the pros. The cons, which actually are pretty good, bundle prices actually work in consumers' favors. To make a long story short, basically the network groups will price the premier network at sort of what it's worth, and then all their ancillary stations, so if it's in the USA, if it's NBC, Bravo, USA, whatever, are much less than they would be a la carte, because what they really want is to get eyeballs and to get the ad revenue. So if it was unbundled, the prices of those niche stations would go up, and if you were a fan of one of those, you'd be paying more, which is what that says. Choosing a la carte packages also can be confusing and time-consuming. Most people really don't want to deal with it. They don't want to have to get that granular. If you sort of say to them, it's confusing enough to pick a package, and then if you have to start checking off which channels you want, it's tough. And the amount of money saved is fairly minimal. Unless you're really taking a scalpel to your package, you're really not saving a whole ton of money, and you're getting a lot less as part of it. So we did a quick survey, which is the part that I'm going to breeze through here, of Canadian TV viewers, because you guys have that new law, and just to see what the reaction was. So, good age, good range of ages, sort of hanging out in the middle there. Sort of more male than female. That's just who responded. More Shaw subscribers than everybody else, but again, sort of a range. People not that thrilled with their cable service. Lower awareness of the new law than we were expecting. And then hardly anybody's actually taken advantage of it. And then of the people who did take advantage of it, only, some of them were not that happy with the ultimate decision. Something else, we found that if you ask what's your favorite type of programming, it's sort of all over the place, although sports and kids programming is sort of towards the bottom. Now, what this says is, if you're and I'll get to this after, if you're a family, it's going to be a lot harder to choose which channels you're getting rid of, because different people in the house may have different priorities than somebody who has their own, living by themselves. They can just sort of take care of their service. So also the other question we asked is, do you have Netflix? And again, Netflix, this is sort of a higher number than average of the people who responded. Most of them did. So streaming services are becoming very important. So what do we conclude for this? Oops, that I can throw the remote all around. So that while it was a well-intentioned law, it's not really this, that's not really in high demand. People are kind of, people are lazy, basically. They don't want to sort of go in and mess with it. It's fine, and they're not that interested in choosing. They're not saving all that much by unbundling. That was something sort of in talking to, sort of pushing through what we found is that, they're like, it was, I saved a little bit, but it wouldn't have been that amazing, or I don't, I realize I'm not going to save that much. And as I said before, it's easier for single-person households than for families or just sort of groups of people, roommates, whatnot, sharing a TV. So let's take a look at how this works on the ad buying market. So initially, it's going to make ad buying a little bit more confusing because the networks, the brands are going to start pushing back. Well, how are we going to know how many subscribers you have at the end of the year if everybody can start unbundling and pulling stuff off? Are your numbers going to be the same as they were when they started? And the reality is that they probably will be, but it's going to take a year before that sort of you can sort of hold up the numbers and go, see, we didn't really lose anybody to this new unbundling law. It's all good. Again, it depends how certain networks will start to lose viewers if they're not that popular, but by and large, it doesn't seem like there's going to be a great impact on it, and it'll still be the same. A bigger impact is caused by time shifting. The fact that this is I'm trying to think how to describe. So, in the old model, when everything is linear, if I'm watching if I see an ad on channel A, I don't see it on channel B, right? Because I can only pick one of the options. With time shifting and addressable, I can see the ads on both because I can watch them in different, I'll be watching the show at different times, so I have a much broader range of when I can watch things. Another thing to sort of give hope is this year, there's an article actually this very morning in the Los Angeles Times saying that the U.S. networks are predicting a banner year at the upfronts. After years of moving everything to digital, brands are starting to say, hey, how about that reach thing? So, and TV, all of the sort of doom and gloom about TV, cord cutting, cord nevering, doesn't really seem to have come true. And in which case, so people are saying, hey, let's look at TV again. Let's look at the fact that people are watching lots of video. Let's look at the fact that when they're watching on demand, they're still seeing commercials. And let's look at the fact that addressable is becoming a thing, and we can start spending money on that. And I know you guys don't, as we determined yesterday at some of the sessions, addressable is still a small piece of the Canadian market, but it's coming, and sort of looking at also the environment of TV. So there's a tendency, a lot of media buying agencies talk, and push their brands to being what they call video agnostic, that YouTube, Facebook, CBC, all the same. But nobody really believes that because, at some level, because it's the content that's around it, the sort of mindset that you have when you're watching long form versus short form, the device you're watching it on, that all matters. And I think brands are coming around to realizing that, okay, yes, at some level video is video, but context really does matter. So I have 15 minutes, and I'm going to turn it over for questions now. I thank you. I also am going to take 2 seconds to plug my book, which is up there. It's available at Amazon.
Firstly, a round of applause, please, for Alan. was going to take a few questions from the audience. I thought I'd prepare one though, just in case. Come on, everybody. You want to warm up to asking questions. Don't be shy. But I thought I'd prepare one first, which is this pick and pay marketplace. I'm intrigued as to whether this is going to have an effect on addressable advertising, dynamic ad insertion, even whether it will actually help drive dynamic ad insertion. Because if there's potentially lower rated channels because of this pick and pay situation, does that mean that will drive the adoption of dynamic ad insertion in order to better monetize lower rated channels?
I think so. I would like to think so anyway, that one of the things that could possibly happen that we're sort of seeing as a distinct possibility is that a lot of lower rated channels will stop being 24/7 broadcasted. You'll still have to, they'll still be part of your subscription package, but they're going to look at the landscape and go, gosh, why are we spending money on syndicated content to fill the hours between 1 a.m. and 6 a.m. when nobody's watching? Why don't we just put out 20 to 40 hours, depending on their stomach for it, of original programming or something close to original, something that we own, have it available on VOD where you can fill it with addressable advertising, and we'll make a lot more money that way because people are not tuning in, they're not sort of flipping through the channels to watch us. They're sort of doing it by appointment anyway. Yeah. So why not? Why the money that we save from not buying the syndicated content to fill in the gaps, we will make up by not being a 24/7 channel. A lot of that also is quite honestly going to depend on what the guide looks like. If you have that grid guide that says here's what's on now, it becomes a lot harder. But if you have something that looks much more like a Netflix-like guide, where it's here's what's recommended for you, and it sort of takes the notion that hey, this could be you have much more VOD on demand than live, and live is just one option. Then that becomes a much easier to pull off.
So sorry, excuse my ignorance on this. I view myself as a naive expert because I've got no clue about the Canadian market. In fact, yesterday the audience had to explain to me what a BDU was. Justin stitched me up there. He told me it was a broadcaster. So excuse my ignorance, but this pick and pay then, you think it's absolutely going to drive the adoption of OTT and almost on-demand watching, and that in turn will therefore drive addressable.
I think so. I think that you will, again, I don't think it'll have a huge impact, but just even the threat of it, the fact, which would happen with or without the law, that people are, networks are sort of realizing, okay, people are doing what they call cord shaving. They're looking at their packages on their own. They're sort of, pulling some stuff off. They're also wondering, okay, what do we get if I'm a big network group? What do I get out of having this lower rated channel? What's my advantage? It used to just be sort of, like I said, dominating the blocks. If people weren't watching, so say U.S. channels, I can tick them off. If somebody wasn't watching NBC and they watched the ad on Bravo, then NBCU won, right? Because they got that view, they got that ad revenue. But now that it can be time shifted, I can watch both NBC and Bravo because I can watch them in different times, even if it's the same show that would run linear at the same time.
I see. We've got a question at the front from Stuart there.
Yes.
Are we going to get mics to the audience?
It's got a lapel mic.
Oh, you've got a lapel mic. You're good.
It's
not on yet.
Is it on?
Here comes Justin.
Just shout.
Here
Okay,
comes
I'll
Justin. Wait. Okay.
So if people have a usual of 10 channels and they decide to shave off the ones they don't watch, how is that going to affect impacts in any way, shape or form?
How is that going to affect what?
So if people have a repertoire of 10 channels,
right,
and then they shave off the ones they don't actually watch, how is that going to affect ad impact at all?
Because they do occasionally watch. I mean, because again, they do occasionally watch they have 10 that they watch maybe 80% of the time, and then there's the other ones that they occasionally watch, or that other people, or like I said, or other people in the household watch.
And second question,
yeah,
if they shave off those channels they watch an occasional time, do those impacts go to other channels, or do they just lose from television? Because my view is, and I think our view at Bell, is that we're not going to lose audience, they'll just go to other channels. And secondly, most channels, 80% of the viewing is done by 20% of the subscribers to that channel. So if you lose the top end, you don't actually lose that many ad impacts.
Right. I mean, so the danger for you guys is that instead of going to another channel, they're going to go to somebody like Netflix that you don't get revenue from. You know, that's what will fill in the gap? Netflix, Amazon.
So they're going to go from an occasional channel to an appointment to view like Netflix.
Exactly.
Okay.
Which a lot of people don't even feel. Which, given the ubiquity of Netflix, it doesn't even feel like it's appointment. It's kind of like, okay, what's on Netflix now, and because there is so much TV, even though it's reruns.
Okay, brilliant. Well, thanks so much, Alan. Please, round of applause, everybody. Thank you.